Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Nevis. Good afternoon, St. Kitts. Good afternoon to the entire Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. Of course, good afternoon to all who are listening to Von Radio at this time. It's a pleasure being here with you once again on a Friday afternoon for this program called On Point. And indeed, we make it here at 1 o'clock every Friday afternoon, and we are here until just about 2 p.m. So it's a 1-hour program, and we try as much as possible to get in as many different bits and pieces of information and issues taken care of throughout that period of time. Before I go any further, let me greet all of our listeners down there in Statia, Saba, the French and Dutch St. Martin, of course, the British and U.S. Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, the United States, of course. We do have a large following there as well, from the eastern seaboard all the way over to the western flank, or the west coast of the United States, and all who are in between. And indeed, Canada, we do have some following there as well. And up in Europe, England, Germany, all over Europe, we do have persons who are listening. You know why? Von Radio is the station or the mode of communication of choice for anything emanating from the island of Nevis, for those who are out in the diaspora and those who follow what is going on here in Nevis. So Von Radio is being listened near and far and wide, and that is why I'm shouting up everyone. It's good to acknowledge you, as you would have taken time out of your busy schedule to listen to us today. Indeed, today is somewhat a different type of day here on the island of Nevis. We've had some showers earlier, and we are having some sunlight at this time, but we are in preparation mode, or expectancy mode, so to speak. For those of you who haven't been following, those of you who are not on the island of Nevis or in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, we are preparing ourselves for the onset of what I would call Hurricane Tammy now. It was a tropical system over the last couple of days, made its way across the Atlantic Ocean, and it's now within our region. As a matter of fact, my understanding from the last report, it is just somewhat north of Barbados and traveling in a northwest direction. The discomforting thing, though, is that we are understanding that the system have slowed down, and when that happens, generally speaking, when a system comes to a crawl, so to speak, what we have realized over the years is that it continues to pick up energy, because what we are understanding is that the water temperatures are still very warm out there, and of course these systems need warm water and the enabling environment for them to develop and become much stronger. So we have seen some increase in the strength of Tammy, and with that said, it therefore means, and it behooves all of us to start our preparation, or continue with our preparation, or bring our preparation to a conclusion, because many persons would have been doing various things in order to prepare for this storm Tammy. Based on the last location, I believe those of you who have been following social media and also on radio, of course, would have been updated at 11 o'clock today. Indeed, we expect further updates as the day progresses, but in all of the indications that we're hearing is that by later this evening, going into tomorrow, Saturday, the weather would start to or continue to deteriorate. So it therefore means we expect some wind, we expect rain, and based on the information we have garnered thus far, we are expecting just about 2 to 4 inches thereabout of rain. It all depends. It all depends on how close this storm gets to our shores. We're always praying and we're always hoping that these storms will, go away from us, meaning make such a turn that it doesn't affect the island of Nevis or the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. Of course, our neighboring islands as well are in our prayers, because once we pray for safe passage, then we also have to keep our brothers and sisters in mind as well. So we are hoping that the entire Leeward Islands from the north down to the south will be spared any major setbacks or damages from Hurricane Tammy. I'm expecting Mr. Brian Dyer, who is the director of the Nevis Disaster Management Department. He is expected to be with me shortly to give some update and also give some encouragement to you, and also some admonition in the process as well, because of course even though some encouragement is given, persons will also have to get that type of admonition to be in a position to get ready to move or get ready to do whatever is necessary to protect yourself, your family, and those around you. In the meantime, though, I'll get back to the situation with Tammy, but let me just at the onset of the program, what we'll normally do is just quickly give some greetings and also acknowledge those who are, having difficult times, meaning families that would have lost their loved ones at this point in time. So at this point in time, I'm saying to the general public that the entire Camps area and St. James on a whole are in grief today as we mourn in the loss of Vera France. And I say Vera France, and a lot of persons may just wonder, well, who is that? But let me give the nickname for Vera, because everyone would then recognize and say, aha, I know Vera. Vera France is MAGA. Those of you who are familiar with that name, that is her nickname, the name that she was affectionately called, MAGA. She would have departed this life, I believe it was Tuesday evening, and she was at the hospital for just a short period of time. And indeed, that is why we said today we are here, tomorrow we're gone, this minute we are here, this minute we are gone. And indeed, we were saddened by that bit of news on Tuesday evening. Well, I want to extend my condolences to the entire family of Vera the France, and also the Mills side of it. Frank Mills, those of you out there who are familiar with Frankie, normally would play in this string band. What's the band's name again? Not Honeybees, it's called the Sugar Hill Band. That is the string band, yeah? And indeed, I want to also extend condolences to her sons, Kervin, and also Kimoy, and of course all of the other family members who are affected by the loss of MAGA. And indeed, there is this line in this song that says, Jesus comes in the midst of the storm. And if this is a storm, as it is, then of course we expect the good Lord to be there, and be there to provide the comfort and ease the grief that will come along with a loss like this. Nurse Jean, I also want to mention you as well, because you're very close, or you're very close to the family as well, and absolutely a friend, colleague, and someone who has been there for MAGA over the years. And I know this is one that is difficult for you, but as difficult as it is, we all have to continue to be as strong as we can be for each other and try to lift each other up. So that is what we have to impart regarding Vera MAGA France. And she was still young, but all ages are departing these days. Young, the not so old, and the old as well. But such is life. You're born, you live, and you die, and that is just the cycle that we'll all have to go through over the course of our lifetime. So condolences once again, and may God continue to lift everyone up and continue to protect and guide the family as they go through these difficult times. Well, there's always death, there is life, and there's fun and enjoyment. So in death, there's still persons who are celebrating, and I want to acknowledge at this point in time my good friend there in Mount Lily, Mr. Honourable Alexis Jeffers. He's celebrating his birthday today. Oral, happy birthday to you. This is another milestone, one that I'm sure that you're happy to achieve. And I want you to give God thanks and blessings and acknowledge His blessings over the years. And these days, a birthday is one that all should celebrate, with all of the trims and everything that comes with it, because birthdays are meant to be celebrated, and birthdays these days should be celebrated in grand style. So I'm telling you to go out and have fun. Make it a fabulous day. While at that, I also want to acknowledge as well my good friend down the range there in Brick Hill, that's Honourable Jeffers. He is celebrating as well today. Well, much younger than Oral, of course, yes. So he have far less birthdays he would have seen. But every one of these birthdays are important and still a milestone. So, Jarif, enjoy yourself. Have a fantastic day today. I know the younger folks would know how to enjoy and have fun. So, I know you definitely have the formula for that. So, go ahead and enjoy yourself, and we'll catch up soon. So, those are who I have for birthday greetings today. And indeed, I want to just tell everyone who are celebrating, go out and enjoy, but be safe about it, but have fun, and pray God would bless you with many more years as well. That being said, I was talking about Tammy just now, and indeed we have been going through this hurricane season. Started in June of this year, and of course it ends in November, or the 30th of November to be precise. But over the last couple of months, we have been admonishing persons to be prepared, stay prepared, and always be in that state of readiness in the event of anything. We have seen some storms that have come our way over the last couple of months, and they have not come directly towards St. Kitts and Nevis or towards the Leeward Islands, for example. And we've always been spared, and we have this kind of thinking, oh, it's not coming. You see, we prepared and it did not come. But it did not come because we do not control nature. We do not control the path of these hurricanes. There are times when hurricanes are on their way directly towards us, and then some system comes along and lifts that hurricane or lift that weather system, and it goes out into the Atlantic Ocean and no one is impacted. Or perhaps it goes south of us and then we are spared. But there are times when someone else becomes the casualty, so to speak, if it doesn't come our way. But that is what has happened over the last couple of months. So last week or the week before, we had a system that passed through, and it was a surprise to many because it was punching some wind and some rain, and indeed it was a very small system that passed through. So that one was indeed a surprise for many. This time around, though, this one looks serious. It is not a large hurricane. It is not a large system, of course, but it is a Category 1 hurricane, which means it is packing winds of 75 miles per hour or more. In that regard, 75 miles per hour wind is, in my opinion, it can cause some damage. It all depends on where you are, what your structure is like, and indeed trees and vegetation that are vulnerable to a hurricane of this particular size will become casualties along the way. So there have been some admonition from the acting Premier and Deputy Premier of Nevis, the Honourable Eric Evelyn. There have been some information and some admonition had from Mr. Brian Dyer, who is the Director of the Nevis Disaster Management Department. There have been some admonition from all various persons who would have, who would have something to say and something to do about these storms in terms of getting you prepared. Indeed, we would have seen a Facebook posting as well, from the Premier of Nevis, who is off island, of course, but he would have sent his best wishes and asking persons to be on guard. That being said, what can you do? Of course, in terms of preparing, I've seen persons who would have gone to the supermarkets this morning and persons who are still there. Indeed, the schools and government offices were closed at 12 noon today. So in that regard, you had more persons on the street, more persons who are going out to purchase items that, of course, are needed during the storms. And while you're out there shopping, of course, you'll purchase the things that are definitely needed by you. Meaning, you don't go on a shopping binge and buy things that you know can be problematic for you if we would have, or we lose electricity, for example. You don't go and buy 10 pounds of chicken when you know if you lose if you lose electricity, there is the possibility that those can spoil a deal. So you buy the things that are important, things that you know would get you through the next couple of days, and buy things that you know you don't have to waste. Wastage is not good. So you'll need your water, fresh water. You'll need batteries. You'll need, well, some persons will buy candles, but that, in my opinion, can be a hazard to some extent. It can be problematic. But if you need to, you do that. But you must have your flashlight for sure. You need your batteries in the first place for your radio, because if you need to listen and stay up to date with any station in the region that is still functioning, if they're not impacted as heavily and they're on the air, you'll need to find out what is happening in other islands or countries, or getting information that can be of importance to you here in Nevis as well. Indeed, you also need to have, well, if you don't have one now, it is important to start thinking about having a fire extinguisher to some extent, because if there's any fire, then of course it might be difficult to communicate with the emergency services to get them to your place. So whatever you can do to extinguish a fire, you need a fire extinguisher to some extent. Those who can afford to have one, not now but going into the future. Indeed, also you need items such as your medication. You'll have to have those in your Ziploc bags and have them in a state of readiness, so if you have to move from your location, you have those with you. So what I'm getting at now is that you need at least an emergency bag in case you have to leave your home because of any issues with the integrity or the structure of your home. From what I understand, there are no shelters open at this time, or none perhaps will be opened. But indeed, you must equip yourself with the necessary numbers that you'll have to call. And that is why I was waiting for Brian to come, because he normally would have that information to impart. But indeed, over the years, we've been talking about these things for a number of years, and all of us would have gone through hurricanes over the years. Those of us who are old enough may remember back in 1989 when we were visited by Hurricane Hugo. For most of us, that was the first hurricane that we would have experienced. Of course, persons who were older than us at that point in time in 1989 would have experienced tropical storms, hurricanes before us. So they had an idea. For those of us who experienced Hugo, though, we realized on the Saturday it was very calm, very hot. People were going around Charlestown as if nothing was coming, and all of us were asking, well, where is the hurricane? Well, the hurricane didn't come at that point in time. It did come, though, on the Sunday morning, somewhere around 8 o'clock thereabout, and it was a small storm, 90 miles per hour thereabout, but it created havoc here on the island of Nevis, because persons were not prepared, because we would not have experienced that type of scenario before. Since then, though, I will say that a lot has been done to build some resilience into the systems here in Nevis, in terms of the architecture, in terms of the buildings, in terms of the drainage, in terms of how we prepare by cleaning guts and so forth, leading up to the hurricane season and even during the storms as well. I want to certainly commend all of the technical people who would have been responsible for designing our bridges or drainage, and in terms of the necessary ordinances and laws that have been passed here on the island of Nevis to improve the building and the integrity of our buildings. I want to commend one and all, because of course we have seen an improvement over the years of our homes. I can at this point in time, give some, examples of what I would have seen in the past. In the past, of course, these rafters that are put into the beams of houses in the past, it almost seemed as though hurricanes came along and just lifted them out, and they were gone just like that. But in recent years, we have seen a lot of effort being put into ensuring that the roofing structures are much more sound, and indeed the steel and everything that goes into ensuring those rafters are tied into the beams and so forth. All that we have seen an improvement over the years, and perhaps that is why some strong winds will blow through our islands and through the Federation, and you see minimal damage. But of course, that is a part of the resilience that have been built into the system, and also the mitigating steps that have been taken to ensure that we can protect our buildings and the integrity of our buildings. Indeed, the drainage have been improved all throughout the island of Nevis, and I can speak specifically for Nevis because we have had some showers. Yes, there have been minimal damage to our roadways, but by and large we have seen water flowing as it should because of the necessary drainage that have been built into the infrastructure. So I believe we have done a good job, and not only from the government standpoint, but also from the private sector standpoint, because we have to adhere to the rules and the laws that are in place. So infrastructure-wise, I believe we are prepared. And in listening to Brian Dyer earlier, he would have suggested that the stakeholders that he have been in touch with are prepared as well. As with the government, the private sector is on board in terms of their preparation. In terms of personal safety, I mentioned items such as medication, and also personal safety also means that you stay off of the road once the storm is upon us. You see, once you get out on the road and you're stuck on the road somewhere, or you get caught in perhaps flood waters, then you will be calling someone to risk their life as well to come and rescue you. That is not what we want at this time. Once you get home, you stay home. Once you're indoors, you stay indoors. And indeed, even after the storm may have passed, persons normally like to go out and say they're sightseeing and looking at things. That is not for you to do. It is for the persons who are mandated to do these things, meaning the emergency personnels, persons at the Nevis Disaster Management who would want to go out and assess the damages and give a report to the island or to the cabinet of the Nevis Island Administration. They're the ones who would have to go out on the road, and they're the ones we expect to be out there. If you were to go out as civilians to do your sightseeing and creating havoc in the traffic, it minimizes the effort and the progress of those emergency personnel who would want to be out there to do the work that they are mandated to do. So once you're home, you stay home until the all clear is given. Not only that, the Nevis Water Department will have to go out and do the assessment. And most importantly, I say most importantly because all of the utilities are important to us, but when we lose electricity, many of us feel like we have lost it all. So NEVLEC will have to do an island tour and assessment of any damages if we are impacted by the storm. So we want to ensure that NEVLEC and all of the equipment that they have to use can traverse the island of Nevis freely without encumbrances from civilians who are out there sightseeing or anything of that sort. That being said, power lines, if that is the case, may be down, and you don't want to be out there as civilians fighting to get around or through trees that are down on the road, debris. You're talking about electrical wires. You never know what the case might be. The point I'm trying to make, your safest place to be during and after the storm is in your own space, and that is at home and waiting for any update that will come your way. So that being said, I believe I have done a reasonably good job, because I did said I was expecting Brian Dyer to join me, so I was setting the stage for him, so to speak, and he has just joined me. But I want to apologize on his behalf. You know why? Brian Dyer is the man who controls or in charge of the affairs when it comes to disaster management. It's the preparation, the execution, and the after effects. He's the one who would be spearheading all that. So I understand he may have been tied up before he got here, so that is why I apologize on his behalf. But Brian Dyer, you've walked out of the maybe some hot sun outside. You've come into the cool environment of Von Radio. Thank you for coming, and thank you for being here as well. And indeed, I want to, from the onset, give you commendation for the work that you and your staff there at the Nevis Disaster Management continue to do, because you've been at it for many years, and this is not light work for you, but it's like a template is already there for you, because you've been through this many a times. But welcome, and I am going to turn it over to you to give an update as to where we are with respect to this storm, any admonition, and then we'll have some further discussion from there. Welcome.
Thank you for the invitation, and it's a pleasure being here. I just stepped out of a regional meeting to be here with you, sir. So
Sure.
It's a pleasure being here. The islands are under hurricane warning as the impact of Hurricane Tammy is imminent. At the 11 a.m. position, the National Hurricane Center reported Hurricane Tammy at position 14.1 degrees north, 58.6 degrees west, or about 165 miles to the east-southeast of Martinique and 240 miles to the southeast of Guadeloupe. Put it in perspective, Guadeloupe is 100 miles to the south of Nevis, right? So if it's about 240 miles to the south of Guadeloupe, that means about 340 miles to the south of St. Kitts and Nevis, roughly. All right. Maximum sustained winds are about 75 miles an hour with higher gusts, and present movement towards the west-northwest at 290 degrees at a forward speed of 7 miles an hour. The minimum central pressure is 992 millibars or 29.30 inches. As I indicated, watches and warnings are in effect for a number of islands, including St. Kitts and Nevis. We are under hurricane warning, sorry. That means conditions are expected within 24 to 36 hours of impact. What is significant for us is the amount of rainfall predicted from the system. For the Leeward Islands, the National Hurricane Center has indicated that we can expect 4 to 8 inches of rainfall from the system, with maximum amount up to 12 inches. So this is significant for the Northern Leeward Islands, as some of us are mountainous, some are flat, so the impact on the mountainous islands will be more significant than the flat areas, because the mountainous areas would have the potential now for mudslides and landslides, etc., etc. Right? Even though the flat islands will be more susceptible to flooding issues, we are looking at multiple hazards developing from this one system. What is interesting that came out of the meeting that is ongoing, that I picked up from the Caribbean Institute of Meteorology and Hydrology, they made a presentation, and they're saying the bulk of the rainfall is to the east of the system. So if the current track holds true, the most of the rainfall will be out at sea. So that would spare the island some. But we still, you know, the fluctuation between the movements of the hurricane is unpredictable. Even though we have some models still not in agreement as to the exact probable path. There's a few models bringing it very close to the islands. There's some taking it a bit north of the islands. So we are still monitoring to see what actually develops. But we still have to ensure that persons are prepared for the impact at this time. We continue our preparations. There's also a meeting scheduled at NEMA with the Honourable Prime Minister at 2 p.m. He would then determine when the emergency operation centers will be activated as we prepare for the impact of Hurricane Tammy. We have done a lot here on Nevis to date. We started the drain cleaning and ensuring that our waterways are free of any debris. We started that activity since Monday. However, with regards to the discussions with our stakeholders, we had that meeting yesterday with the Honourable Spencer Brand. He chaired the Nevis Disaster Management Committee meeting, and we had in attendance a number of stakeholders, the government agencies, volunteers, the media, etc. And it was pleasing to know that all the stakeholders had already put their emergency plans into action and are executing their roles. So we have from the utilities point of view, we had Flow, Digicel, Nevlec, Water Services. They all represented and they all had their emergency plan being executed.
Right.
The concern for us, though, the amount of rainfall, even though we have improved our drainage here on the island, we can expect some damage to our roadways. And in having damaged roadways, we could see, depending on the amount of water, surface water, we could see some interruption to the water supply. So we are encouraging persons to stock up on water that can be utilized during the passage and immediately after the passage of Hurricane Tammy. Yes. The Nevlec had reported that they would have the power on as long as possible, being in mind that the wind would be picking up, and then we may have some wires be interacting with each other, etc., etc. We also have the possibility of lightning strikes, so those also could affect the transformers. Right, so we are in discussion with Nevlec to see how best they can keep the power on as long as practicable.
Right.
Because once that goes, then persons would have to rely on batteries. Some generators would continue using their standby power, but there will be persons without power. And without Nevlec, then the water system would be impacted as well. Because discussion with the water department, their generator systems are very sensitive, so they would prefer not to utilize their generation during the time power is out, to ensure that we keep the damage to a minimum after the impact, so we can restore both electricity and water as soon as practicable after the storm passes.
Right.
So we are working with those entities as we speak. With regards to preparation, we continue to appeal to persons that they should stock up on the food. We recognize that the activity at the various supermarkets is a high of activity. That means persons are taking the heat seriously, and they are preparing. We want to also appeal to persons in the low-lying areas. On Nevis, there are a few areas that are prone to flooding. We have the Stony Grove area, the area just immediately at the back of Ram Supermarket. They are prone to flooding, and especially when they got overtops. So we are mindful of that, and our staff has already inspected the flood management system, so we expect to collect the data, and if there's significant flooding, then the alarm would go off, and we would make the necessary arrangement to either effect rescues or alleviate some of the flood damage in that area. Then we have the area in Lower Bath going right down to the ocean. Those areas are prone to flooding, so we appeal to homeowners in that area again, living along the gut, to be mindful of overtapping and take precaution, and if you have to sandbag or move your location early, then we encourage that. There's some areas in Ramsbury that, even though we have done some work on the drainage, there may still be one or two areas that can be impacted. So again, we want to appeal to the homeowners in Ramsbury to take precaution and look out for flooding or flood damage in the event we get significant amount of rainfall. Then we look at Cades Bay, the low-lying areas. That area is below sea level, and so the drainage there is usually affected not only by runoff from on land, but the storm surge bringing water on shore as well. That is the difficulty with that area. So that is really affected both by storm surge and flooding. So we appeal to the homeowners and businesses in those areas to be on the lookout for flooding and to make preparations accordingly. Then we move further north to Newcastle. That's an area that is prone to flooding. The airport area, and further east to Nesbitt's and up as far as the medical university. Those areas are prone to flooding. So we anticipate that some issues will be there. And we are working with the Public Works Department. They will be stationing the heavy equipment at strategic points around the island to effect the clearing as soon as possible after the storm passes. Then finally, we have an area in St. John's, Pond Hill area. Once that pond overtops, then the persons living downstream are usually affected. So we want to ensure that we take care of those areas as well, and have the residents on alert. Right. We are working with the Red Cross. We are mindful of the impact on our health with regards to the dengue fever. So the significant amount of rainfall is a concern for the Ministry of Health, as they are in the process of raising the awareness of dengue impact. There's some suspected cases on island.
Right.
So we are working with the Ministry of Health to minimize that activity after the storm passes, so we can have a minimum amount of puddling or pooling of water after, so to minimize the mosquito breeding after the passage of the hurricane Tammy. So it's a lot going on.
Yes,
but we continue to utilize the coordination and cooperation of all our stakeholders. We partner with the Chamber of Industry and Commerce. We have appealed to them that even though counties are high activity, that they should close early enough that will give their staff enough time to get home before the bulk of the weather approaches in the islands. Yeah.
What I would say though, Brian, we have been lulled into a false sense of security over the years because we haven't had to deal with too many major storms over the last 5 years there.
5 years, yes.
Yeah. And of course, if I were to throw my mind back to November last year, we had some torrential rain then, early November last year, when we had some damages over there at Cades Bay,
yes.
Coon area. If one were to think about that and put things into perspective, what you're saying is that potentially we can see that type of rainfall from this storm, potentially.
Yes.
And even perhaps more. So just to give the general public an idea as to, and no one is trying to create any alarm, but we have to be real about the information that we're giving out and let people understand the gravity of what can be at our doorstep here shortly. And so the information that you have imparted, in my opinion, I'm sitting here and I'm listening and I'm saying if this was to happen, then we have a problem on our hands. Yeah, there's no doubt. But you have insisted that persons should be prepared, and indeed one of the preparations or one of the important bit of information that we'll have to give out, or some of the important bit of information, is contact information as well. Yeah, if you have those, we can always put those out just in case. Yeah, persons would have to call if you have those available with you.
We are aware and we'll be operating during the system as the system passes. So the EOC would be operational. We're just awaiting the official time from the Prime Minister when this country would go into state of emergency. So for us, the contact numbers at the Nevis Disaster Management, 469 1423, 469 7903, 469 5449, 469 0995, and 469 4030. And also, you can utilize my cell phone, 668-6401. We also partner with Van Radio, as some persons usually call into Van Radio and report the impacts. So we would have a direct relation with Van Radio to collect information being received here at the station as well. We continue to disseminate information via our website and our social media pages that can be accessed from our website. Our website, www.ndmd.kn, and we have a series of information there as well with regards to hurricane preparation and also the passage of tropical Hurricane Tammy.
And just for those who try to follow storms and the direction and the location where storms are at a given point in time, you mentioned that the storm is 14.9 north. When I hear that number, I'm always concerned in the sense that it is still below us.
Yes, it is below us because we are 17.
When it gets to what, about 17 degrees north?
17 degrees north, that's in line with Nevis.
North, and then west, you say about what?
62 degrees.
62 degrees, yeah. So persons who are monitoring storms may want to jot down those numbers to say, when you're listening, you listen for these numbers. And if it says 18 degrees north, for example, then it means that it's
already above us.
Already above us.
Yeah.
And if it is somewhere around 30 degrees west, that is still way out there in the Atlantic somewhere.
Yeah, that is correct.
Yeah. So those are the things that I want people to continue to monitor as you listen, because these bits of information will make you not necessarily a meteorologist, but it makes you more informed in terms of what is happening around us. But in terms of also the pressure of a storm, you hear 1,000 millibars. You said 992.
992, yeah.
992 millibars. It means that the pressure is coming down.
Yeah,
and as the pressure comes down, it means the storm becomes more intense. So these are simple basic facts that people must have at their fingertips to understand what is happening with the system. Because people would call you, I'm sure, what is the hurricane doing? How intense it is? They hear 75 degrees, but then as that number 992 goes down, then it means the 75 degrees will be 75 miles per hour, will be exceeded and so forth. So those are just some basic stuff that persons would want to keep their eyes on and keep their minds in tune to. But you, in your opinion, though, Nevis on a whole, I'm speaking specifically to Nevis, you would think that we have built a lot of resilience into our systems around here, right?
Yes, we have done a lot of work in our communities improving the drainage system, because that has been a problem for us over the years.
Right.
So we continue to work closely with the Ministry of Public Works and in the Ministry of Agriculture in some cases, and we have even utilized some private entities to assist in clearing debris from the waterways and constructing proper drainage in our communities.
Right.
So that should help minimize the impact of flooding and flood damage.
And I see some recent work that was done over there in Newcastle around the police station area. That has been over the years a problematic area.
Problematic area, yes.
I think the test will come if we were to get 4 inches of rain, or you know, a large volume of water were to come down into that area. Then that will give us an idea as to what was done, whether it was adequate, or whether we'll have to do some more work in the area. But indeed, storms have minds of their own. All you can do is prepare as best as you can, and then hope for the best thereafter. But any additional information you want to impart, Brian? Because I know you have other things to do. This is what Tammy is. We have almost gone through the alphabet then.
Yeah, we're winding down the end of the season, so I'm happy for that.
Well, happy in that we've gone almost through the alphabet and nothing much have come our way, which is good.
Yeah, so we continue to monitor the Atlantic and also the Caribbean Sea for further development, because we have another month to go,
right,
before the traditional end of the hurricane season. But we also monitor other hazards, so it's important for us to continue to be vigilant. But annually we are hurricane weary, and they prepared for entire 6 months for this one particular hazard. But for Hurricane Tammy, I want persons to be aware that even though this storm is taking its time to get here, we will have feeder bands and moisture moving ahead of the system. So every now and again we'll have a sharp downpour. All right, so that too will contribute to the soil being saturated, because continuous short downpours would saturate the soil. Then later on, when Tammy approaches, then we have the serious rain. So flooding would be an issue later as the day progresses.
And just, I know we are in October, and you may want to cast your mind back to 2008. I believe that it was in the month of October when we were visited by Omar.
Yeah.
I remember that distinctly. It wasn't a hurricane that brought a lot of rain, a lot of wind, or that, for that matter, but it created significant damage down there at Four Seasons.
Yeah.
And I've seen some mitigating work that have been done down there at Four Seasons. I'm seeing some heavy equipment that have moved on to the shores of Penny's Beach thus far this morning. So it therefore means some steps are being taken just in case. I'm pleased to see that. And indeed, we're hoping that whatever happens, that none of the major institutions that we depend on and rely on will be impacted. But then again, like I said, storms have minds of their own. So, but the preparation is ongoing, and that is the most important thing, and that is key. But I want to, and
I also want to highlight the Public Works Department. They did some recent work on the Samuel Hunkins Drive.
Yes.
Raising the culvert. Yes.
Yeah.
That was foresight, as we have had number of storms over the years and storm surge,
Right.
and that had seriously impacted the bridge and the culvert. So we have now raised that
Right.
in preparation for future storms. So the next step now is to raise the level of the
asphalt
asphalt
roadway
to match the bridge. But that bridge again was impacted by storm surge over the years and deteriorated. So we went ahead and ensured that is being repaired. And so even though the project is not completed, we hope to get that completed by the end of this month.
Right. And there have been some concerns raised. There have been some concerns raised over that same particular culvert in terms of the height and so forth. But I would have mentioned some time ago to someone that it was, in my opinion, foresight and forward thinking, in that when you're building resilience, you must be thinking at least 50 years down the road. Because the previous bridge that was there, or culvert that was there, that wasn't touched for some time. It wouldn't be 50 years, but at least the Samuel Hunkins Drive was constructed way back in 2000 thereabout, or prior to that?
It was
or just before that?
Just before 2000.
So you're thinking 20 plus years?
20 years. It took 20 years of beating. So we have we decided to have it renovated and to prepare it for another 50 years.
Another 50 years,
yes.
And that's how you build the resilience into the infrastructure throughout the island of Nevis. So there was some work done over there at Ouali as well too. You see a major bridge that was constructed there, where there was a swale.
Yes.
Now we have
that because of that construction, we now see a reduction in the impact of transportation going back and forth, because the water would now go under the road instead of above ground.
And here's the thing: this might just be a test in the making here for us this weekend.
Yes.
I'm waiting to see that.
Especially around the Newcastle area. That new culvert
would
be tested. Yeah, so we're happy for that.
Yes, yes, and honestly, I want to commend all of the engineers who would have applied their knowledge and their training and their skills to some of these improvements that we're seeing, because people come to Nevis and they compare Nevis to St. Martin, they compare it to wherever else, you know, and I don't want to call any other islands or countries because the comparison really. But then again, I am proud of what I'm seeing around here, because it therefore means that within us, right here among us, we have the necessary skills and the technical know-how to get the job done, and I am pleased. That is why I said the test will come this weekend. And there's no doubt we want to see some rain. We need the rain. We want to get just about enough so that we can survive it too.
Yeah, and again, another construction that went on, the bridge by the Gold Guides.
Oh yes,
that was done because back in 2011 we had another rain event, and they got at the bridge at Water Department in Pump Road,
right,
the bridge at the high school, and the bridge at Lower Bath. All those were overtopped, and that had cut the access to the hospital. So we constructed another bridge now by the Gold Guides to facilitate. It's a bit higher than the other three.
Right.
So that now would facilitate transportation to the hospital in the event we have another major flooding event.
And not only that, I believe at the back of Stony Grove, the persons who live to the back of Rams would be familiar with some work that was done to
reinforce. We also did some rock
revetment to reinforce that gut to ensure that there is no major erosion and so forth,
and then we have
safety.
Some construction plans for the Hamilton area to also put that drainage under the roadway rather than on top of the roadway. So that's coming in the future. But for now, we have done the other areas that we can permit access to the hospital at all times.
Sure. Well, I want to even go over to Butlers, where I see some major drainage is being put in place at the top of Butlers. We call it the Upper Way. That is up by the Church of God, up at Butlers, the old Church of God.
Yes,
some deep drain has been constructed to move water, because a large volume of water would come down that hill and down towards the middle of Butlers where the tank is, and end up all the way down to the Lower Way, or the main road, and then down to the ocean. So a lot of work has been done, and I suppose the result of this effort will be seen in terms of what happens over the next couple days and beyond. But for those young persons out there who see things happening and probably don't understand, you have reinforced it, and I would also reinforce that everything that is being done now is to prepare the island of Nevis for the next 25 to 50 years to come, and building that type of resilience so that at least it will provide the safety that we need. It would ease the difficulties of recovery in the end to her, and such are the nature of how construction is done these days. And with your effort and that of Public Works, all of you, because when these thinking and decisions are made, you're part of it from a disaster management standpoint.
That is correct. That is correct.
And then Public Works will be guided accordingly, or the architects, the engineers at Public Works will be guided accordingly. So good effort there, and it's just about 5 minutes before the hour. So if you have anything else you'd want to reinforce before we go, Brian?
Yes, I would just like to reiterate the 11 a.m. position of Hurricane Tammy, even though it's 5 minutes before the new position comes out. At 11 a.m. it was 14.1 degrees north, 58.6 degrees west, and it's moving at a west-northwest direction at 7 miles per hour. And this general motion is expected for the next 24 hours at least. We continue to monitor the progress. We also want to appeal to persons to get off the road as soon as possible and prepare your home for impact later this evening. We expect the weather to deteriorate as the evening progresses, and again expect significant rainfall, and we hope for the best.
Well, hope for the best, and continue to pray to the God Almighty for his hands of protection and sparing us, of course, from what we anticipate could be a challenging and difficult time, but of course with God's protection, and they say with Christ in the vessel we'll smile at the storm. Yeah?
Yes.
So I just want to make, I'm not making fun of it, but I'm just trying to be upbeat about it, that we have been through many, many, many difficult times before when it comes to hurricanes. We had Lenny before, you had Hurricane George, Marilyn, all those as young guys coming up, we went through all that, and we're still here. We're still here, and hopefully after this one as well, we'll still be here with God's help and God's protection. Brian, thank you. And I know you'll be up for the next 48, 72 hours non-stop.
Yes, he's long
because
gone, so.
that is the nature of the operation that you're in, and you're going to hunker down there at the EOC building there on Long Point, and that as well, we have to say, all those are structures that were put up to ensure that we are preparing ourselves and we are prepared for these type of challenges. Not only hurricane, but earthquakes, tsunamis, and all of those things that you tend to, or you're mandated to spearhead.
Yes.
So that being said, I wish you and your entire staff well. I wish you safe journey throughout this storm, because you'll have to get out at some point. And once you get out there, you just be careful and ensure that you're taking care of yourself and your staff, so that you can be around to continue the journey thereafter. So thank you for what you've been doing in the past. Thank you for what you'll do throughout the rest of this weekend. And thank you overall, you and your staff, for all that you have done to keep the people of Nevis safe and informed. Thank you for coming, and I know it's a pressing time for you.
Yes.
And we appreciate it very much, right? So that being said, I believe we can go into a wrap-up phase. It's just about 2 o'clock and maybe 1 minute left, but we can always give the 1 minute back to Von Radio, because there's no new thing to start with at this point in time. I just want to end by, all the best, Brian. Thank you. I just want to end by admonishing our citizens to go out and get your preparation done, that continue with your preparation, bring it to a close shortly, get off the road, go home and hunker down with your family, and stay in tune to Von Radio and all other means of communication that are available out there, that are bringing updates of the storm and additional information that are being made available to you. But the most important thing is to stay indoors, stay on your property, stay in your confines, and do not be a hazard or a hindrance to anyone who would be out there doing their work in terms of from the emergency side of it. NEVLEC, Water Department, the EOC, the emergency staff there at the Nevis Disaster Management and so forth. So do not be a hindrance to them in any way. So I am going home myself, and I want to wish everyone a safe journey and through this particular storm. And you have those numbers that were given out just now: 469-1423, 469-7903, 469-5449, 469-0995, 469-4030. Those are numbers that would get you to the emergency personnel. And of course, Brian Dyer would have said that he can be reached on his cell phone as well at 668-6401. So you have some information, so you don't necessarily have to run out to look for someone. Make those calls, and persons will be more than willing to assist, I'm sure. But whatever you can do on your own to make sure you're safe, you go ahead and get that done and ensure that you're protecting yourself and your family. That being said, we ask God's protection on the whole of the island of Nevis, the island of St. Kitts, the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, and all of our brothers and sisters in our neighboring islands. And before I run, just remember, in 2017, Dominica was preparing for a Category 1 hurricane, and within hours, it was a Category 5. So keep an eye on the east. Keep an eye on the storm, and let's hope that it passes us as Category 1 as it is, and nothing more than that. And let's be vigilant. Thank you very much for listening. You have listened to On Point for today, Friday the 20th day of October, and I'm documenting that because I'm hoping that I'll be able to look back at this and say this was the day when nothing created any difficulty for us here on the island of Nevis. So that being said, may God continue to bless all of us. Have a wonderful afternoon and a safe weekend. Thank you very much.
opinions expressed on the preceding program were solely those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Nevis Broadcasting Company Limited or its advertisers.